Hello, my name's Sheena McGuinness and I'm a corporate tax partner at RSM, leading our specialist renewables and clean tech team in the UK. Welcome to Renewables Unwrapped, our series of short videos where we unwrap tax, accounting and consulting issues and opportunities for the renewables industry. Today, we're taking a closer look at VAT and how renewables businesses can benefit from effective VAT management. So I'm joined by my colleague and VAT specialist, Simon Atkins, here at RSM. Hi, Simon. Thanks so much for joining us. And perhaps we could start with you giving a brief introduction on yourself.
Thanks, Sheena. So, yeah, I'm Simon Atkins. I've been with RSM for just over a year now. I spent most of my career in the Big Four. I work with a number of energy and renewable clients, and also do a lot of work in the real estate and the construction sector. So that's kind of me.
Perfect. So you're well placed to help us understand VAT. Now, as you'll know from your work in renewables, in the initial stages of the project life cycle, cash management is so important because they're spending a lot of money up front. Is there anything that can be done from a VAT perspective to help with that all important cash management?
Absolutely, Sheena. I mean, VAT management is really important for kind of managing cash flow and working capital. I'd say three kind of key things. If a business hasn't already started making sales, it can still register for VAT voluntarily, and that can really help with getting VAT recovery on costs in the initial setup phase. So definitely worth thinking about. If you're in construction phase and you're in a repayment position from HMRC, it's worth thinking about getting the business onto monthly VAT returns. It can help cash flow, and it means you get the VAT back just that little bit quicker. And finally, just think carefully about the entity in which you put costs into. Sometimes we see costs going into the wrong entity, and that can cause problems with getting VAT recovery and VAT refunds.
Okay, so just expanding on that, can you fill us in if there's any pitfalls or advice for those thinking about registering for VAT?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a few things to think about. I mentioned about voluntary VAT registrations. One of the things you do have to do is be able to demonstrate to HMRC that you will be making VATable supplies in the future. And you can do that through things like contracts or through providing business plans. Um, it's just worth making sure you provide those in a timely manner, and it helps make sure the application gets processed quickly and you kind of get your VAT refund through as soon as you're able to. The other thing I'd say is, and it needs a bit of careful thought, but if you've got multiple entities within a corporate group, it's worth thinking about setting up a VAT group. That means you have one VAT registration covering multiple entities, and it can be really valuable in saving time and administration. So again, just thinking about VAT grouping can be a good option.
Okay, perfect. And I'm sure this is something that you advise and help clients with when they're going through the pros and cons. But worth noting that if you do make a VAT group election, then all those entities are jointly and severally liable. So you just need to check those loan covenants to check you're not sort of creating a problem elsewhere in doing that. But I know that that's what you help our clients with anyway. Um, One other thought, you mentioned delays. Now, obviously, working in tax, I'm well aware of delays in the tax world when dealing with HMRC. Are you seeing similar within the VAT sector?
Yeah, so I mean, since COVID, I mean, there have been delays with HMRC in processing VAT registration applications. They've kind of acknowledged that themselves. I think it's improving, so I think it is getting quicker. But I guess one bit of advice would be, get your application for VAT registration in as soon as you're able to. If you're doing a voluntary registration, it will, just help get the VAT refunds through that bit quicker.
Perfect, yeah, and getting it right first time, and that's something that you help our clients with, of course. Um, One other thing you mentioned, and I think it's quite key within the renewables sector, is about ensuring that costs are incurred in the right company. Now, obviously, in renewables, that they tend to set up an SPV for the various projects, so that's quite important to understand. Can you give us a bit more information on that one, please, Simon?
Yeah, so one of the things we quite often see is that in the initial stages, costs will be incurred by a holding company, and there are some quite complex rules around VAT recovery within holding companies. In a nutshell, the holding company, has to be making taxable supplies or VATable supplies in its own right. For VAT recovery, it's ideally great to get the costs going into the operating entity, so you're kind of matching the costs with the sales or the future sales, and that can just help make sure you kind of get the VAT refunds in the right place.
Okay, got it. So basically, some careful thought needs to be given to VAT recovery. And on that note, have you got any final thoughts for us?
Yeah, so my final point would be, again, in the early stages, quite often see businesses kind of restructuring their corporate groups or moving assets around. I just say, just carefully think about the VAT consequences when you are moving assets around a corporate group. For example, can you move the assets within a VAT group so that you can kind of ignore VAT? If you're moving land, just thinking about whether you need to opt to tax, just to help ensure VAT recovery. Are you moving assets into an entity that may be partly exempt or have some kind of restriction on its VAT recovery? All these things just need to be thought through. I've seen many instances where you've ended up creating a back cost where there really shouldn't be one. So it's worth taking the time just to have a think about that.
Perfect. Thanks, Simon. That is a really helpful overview in terms of how VAT management can help in the early stages of renewables projects. At RSM, we have many years of specialist experience within the renewables and clean tech sector. And if you'd like to find out more information, please do get in touch with me or visit our website.